I will now ask the Minister, Hildegarde Naughton, to address TUI Congress.
Dí ver margin bualam mo bhuichas a gáil le Uachtarán agus le ordrúni an TUI as an gura lauert lebeniu an seo I Kilkenny. I'm delighted to be here with you all this morning in Kilkenny, and I would like to first of all thank the TUI President Anthony Quinn and General Secretary Michael Gillespie for your invitation to address your annual Congress here this morning. 2026 is a significant year for the Irish education system, and it marks the 60th anniversary of the decision to make secondary education free for all. Donna O'Malley's announcement on the 10th of September 1966 paved the way for all young people to access post-primary education. That was the first very important step to ensuring that the state provided all children with equal access to education. But it is fair to say that the school system continues to grapple with the import of that decision, because, as we know, there are still barriers for some young people to realise their potential and to thrive, regardless of their background and need. I know from my own experience, working as a teacher, that observing learning in action is one of the best parts of the job. I also want to acknowledge the challenges that working in a complex modern world brings to our school communities. And I want to thank you and all of the school communities for your collective commitment to excellence and your professionalism, and for the work that you do with students day in and day out across this country. Since being appointed Minister for Education and Youth in late November last year, I have met with students, teachers, school leaders, staff, trade unions, advocacy groups, education stakeholders, and with parents. And I've noted the many elements of our system that work well, and also those areas that do not. Central to maintaining our world-class education system are the teachers who work with children and young people from a range of backgrounds, who can face challenges around online safety, intergenerational poverty and trauma, well-being, and other issues. Over the next year, I intend to focus on 3 key areas. They are helping teachers and school leaders to focus more on teaching and learning, reforms of special education, making the system more inclusive and better for all, and teacher professional development to further support our teachers in helping children flourish in an increasingly complex world. You may have seen media reports this week about the funding for our schools and teachers, and about the need to further invest in our school system. As I've said recently, I make no apologies for working to secure additional resources that are needed to support the critical work that happens each day in our classrooms. Our school system is demand-led, and our budget resourcing needs to follow it. I will continue to push for the resources and the supports that all students need to grow and to thrive. We all know the importance of a good education. It lays the foundation for our young people to thrive and for our country to prosper. And that is why I am deeply concerned by the latest data published by TUI Education Support Service on school attendance, which indicates that 1 in 5 of our children and young people are missing at least 20 days of the school year. A range of measures has been introduced over the last number of years to tackle school absenteeism. These include grant funding to schools to implement initiatives to improve school attendance, and a national multimedia campaign aimed at parents and young people to reinforce the benefits of attending school. We also know that our education system includes different types of learners, of different abilities, and that we as educators must strive to ensure that the system works for everybody and equips them with the skills that they need to thrive. We know that there are different thresholds in our system for many young people, transitioning from primary to post-primary, the junior cert and leaving cert, completing senior cycle level 1 and level 2, completing youth reach, leaving their youth service behind when they pass a certain age, or completing an apprenticeship. The system cannot stay still and assume the approach used today will be fit for purpose indefinitely. That was not the point of Donogh O'Malley's decision in 1966, and it is not the point today. We know that a sizable cohort of children also face additional disadvantage, which is why the DESH programme is so important. I recently launched the strategy for tackling education disadvantage out to 2035 and the new DESH Plus scheme. This strategy is a comprehensive 10-year plan which builds on previous plans and is supported by a full-year investment of €48 million. The purpose of the DESH strategy to 2035 is to address educational disadvantage in all schools so that every child and young person can dream without limits, is empowered to grow, and is inspired to learn and is supported to succeed. The programme takes a whole school, student-centred approach. DESH Plus builds on this approach and will provide enhanced, targeted supports to 121 schools, which data indicates has the highest level of students at risk of educational disadvantage. DESH Plus strengthens leadership capacity. It expands well-being and family engagement supports and deepens the focus on attendance, participation, and progression. A key feature is the new positive mental health and well-being supports, and each school will be allocated a teacher to lead a whole school nurturing approach. All DESH Plus schools will benefit from a full homeschool liaison post, increased leadership posts, and enhanced guidance provision. Funding will also be available for breakfast clubs in schools in DESH Plus. I particularly welcome the opportunity to reduce the threshold for the appointment of deputy principals in DESH Plus and DESH post-primary schools, in addition to reducing the threshold for certain other post-primary and primary schools. The investment secured in Budget 2026 for these measures is the biggest full-year investment in targeted supports to address educational disadvantage since the establishment of the DESH programme back in 2006. It also fulfills an important commitment in the programme for government. The Senior Cycle Redevelopment Programme has been central in the engagement between my department and the TUI since last year's Congress. Last May, my department published the Senior Cycle Redevelopment Implementation Support Measures document. I acknowledge and I welcome the endorsement of that package by TUI members following last year's ballot. I want to be absolutely clear today. Senior Cycle Redevelopment has the full support of government. We have made firm commitments to our young people, and thanks to your cooperation, we are continuing to deliver. It will be delivered with the full support of teachers who have signed up to agreements in good faith with my department. We owe it to all students, including those doing Level 1 and Level 2 programmes, to ensure that this happens. I recognise the huge professionalism teachers bring to the classroom every single day. My intention is that those who are cooperating with Senior Cycle Redevelopment in full, including, importantly, the additional assessment components, AACs, will receive the full benefits of the pay agreement. It is worth noting that some measures of that agreement have already been implemented. The revised interim Croke Park hour arrangement have been implemented, which sees an increase in teacher-led hours from 10 to 14. Revised arrangements for the granting of a contract of indefinite duration for viable posts after 1 year are now in place, as promised by my predecessor last year. The publication by the State Examinations Commission of consolidated coursework rules and procedures, which includes specific protections for teachers regarding authentication, as well as clarity on the roles of students, teachers and schools. I'm particularly delighted to note that Level 1 and the Level 2 learning programme modules are being followed across mainstream and special school settings, with certification provided by the State Examinations Commission for the first time in 2026. I'm also announcing today 2 posts of responsibility in our schools to support Senior Cycle. The posts will be available for application by teachers who have accepted the support measures package, and both will attract reduced contact time. First, I will be publishing a circular this week to establish a dedicated post of responsibility in schools which offer Level 1 and Level 2 learning programmes. The second post of responsibility will be available to all post-primary schools as a Senior Cycle coordinator role. Both of these posts will be available to TUI members, given your acceptance of the support measures package. In response to the call by the TUI to shine a light on the complex challenges of the working environment for their members, I'm announcing today the establishment of a workload working group as committed to in the support measures package. The findings and the recommendations emerging from that group will inform important aspects of a workforce development plan which is currently underway in the department. I'd also like to update you on an important development arising from the Senior Cycle implementation support measures in light of the evolving impact of AI in education. Yesterday, I announced the establishment of the AI in Schools External Advisory Task Force. Building on our AI guidance for schools, the AI in Schools Hub, updated State Examinations Commission's coursework rules, and our participation in the EU Technical Support Instrument, Future-Proof Education Supporting Schools in the AI Evolution project, which will be implemented by UNESCO. Like all new technologies, AI brings real opportunities for our education system, but also risks. So our response must support that focus on teaching and learning, and I mentioned at the outset that needs to be balanced, evidence-informed, and robust. Your voices will be heard, and your experiences will help to ensure that the task force work delivers thoughtful, practical outcomes that genuinely supports teaching, learning, and assessment. The research on generative AI in assessment commissioned by the SEC and that is currently underway will complement the work of that task force. Views of teachers are also being gathered in Ireland through an online survey with a further opportunity for teachers to engage in more focused feedback. The debate on AI often focuses on the issue of the authentication of student work in the context of assessment. It is important to remember that coursework was first introduced in the Leaving Cert over 20 years ago. Teachers and school leaders have an extremely important role in ensuring that coursework is completed with integrity so that the examinations are fair for the benefit of all students. In our experience, teachers in subjects which already have coursework carry out their assigned roles with professionalism and integrity. And I know that that will continue in relation to new subjects with additional assessment components in the redeveloped Senior Cycle programme. Students and their learning and engagement are at the heart of the Junior Cycle, and there is a continued programme of work, review and research to ensure that our students have the best experience possible. As a result of the ongoing programme of early enactment reviews, we updated the Irish specifications in 2023 and will be introducing updated specifications for foreign languages, digital media literacy and coding this coming September. Indeed, Irish continues to be the subject of further review with the 3-year study ongoing and an interim report due to be published shortly. Last year, changes were introduced to the grade bands at Junior Cycle, with the top 4 grade bands now becoming evenly distributed. This was intended to ensure that students' grades are more reflective of their work and their effort, as well as the work of our teachers and students. Will have seen this in their results last year in 2025. Currently, my department is progressing an important project that aims to deliver the Junior Cycle profile of achievement on Junior Cycle Results Day in order to make it relevant and timely for students. Importantly, this will ensure that all students, no matter what programme they are following, receive the same certificate on the same day. And I would ask you all to support this work with the greatest extent possible. You will also be aware of the 4-year programme of research that has been undertaken by the University of Limerick on behalf of the NCCA. I've asked the NCCA to liaise with UL to arrange for publication of that report after schools return. As I said earlier, junior cycle and senior cycle are both well-known examples of key thresholds in young people's lives, but we all know that they are not the only ones. The youth sector does such important work in supporting our young people, particularly those who experience a greater burden of life's challenges. The department's largest youth scheme is UBU, Your Place, Your Space. It provides out-of-school supports to young people in their local communities to enable them to overcome adverse circumstances and achieve their full potential. In late 2025, 10 new UBU services were established, bringing the current total to 248 nationwide. My vision is that students with additional needs are afforded the opportunity to attend schools in their local area with their peers, relatives, and friends. This is not yet the reality for many children who are forced to travel long distances to access specialist provision. We need to embrace a more inclusive model of education where young people of all abilities are catered for in their community. There is much work to do, and I intend to begin this in the very near future. This work will be informed by consultation, meaningful engagement, and co-design with young people, education stakeholders, and families. I know from conversations with your President, Vice President, and General Secretary how deep and personal your commitment is to the Level 1 and Level 2 learning programme. As Minister, I'm very proud of the work that my department is doing to ensure that all young people receive recognition for achievements that are meaningful to them. We in this room know that the education system is demand-led and responds to need. Another important programme for government commitment and a priority for me is supporting children with additional educational needs, with almost €3 billion provided this year. Thanks to substantial investment over recent years, more than 240,000 students with a special educational need, around 1 in 4 of the student population, are supported to attend mainstream classes with their peers. Over 30,000 students are supported in either a special class or a special school, and we continue to expand provision. I want to thank the school leaders, staff, teachers, SNAs for all that you do across these schools to welcome, to include, and to teach children with additional needs. I think it's important to also note the work that we're collectively doing to support transitions from special schools into further and higher education and into adult services. Transitions is a key pillar of the National Human Rights Strategy for Disabled People, which I had the honour to launch last September, and government departments are working very closely to deliver on this important strategy. We all know that the system needs to adapt. We must strive to develop an education system which supports students of all abilities without attaching a label. One of the issues arising from the review of the legislation underpinning the provision of special education, EPSN, which included the voices of all stakeholders, including teacher unions, was around the language and whether we should continue to use the word special. I intend to shortly publish the actions committed to under the review, which is looking at this issue, but also the inclusiveness of the system as a whole. Across the education system, including schools and youth settings, young people are being actively supported and facilitated in becoming more active in their learning and their growth. This is why I was delighted to speak at the first meeting of the Convention for the Future of Education last month in Athlone, and I note your theme for this Congress here over these days. This is the first convention in over 30 years. The convention's membership reflects the fact that schools, as primary principals and teachers know well, Schools are the beating heart of all of our communities. It brings together school staff, including teachers, along with parents and children and stakeholders, to help shape the future of education and work together as we do that. The TUI, as an education stakeholder, is a member of the Convention on the Future of Education. The Convention's agenda will be informed by the national conversation that I launched in January of this year. Over 40,000 people took part. I'm determined that the Convention will have a real impact on the future of education in this country. The recommendations that it will agree will feed directly into my department's long-term strategy, Our Schools, Our Future. Is linn fád an Gaeilge, mar sin tá sé tábhachtach fécinn sé an Gaeilge mar cheang go bheo, seachas mar ábhar scoile amháin. Sin mar atá sé de phobal na Gaeltachta agus de phobal na scoilení lán Gaeilge las mu den Gaeltacht. Mar ara bhuaithlim go mbeadh ar scoláirí go léir in an Gaeilge labhairt agus go mbeadh siad sásta í labhairt. Bhuailm freisin go mbeadh oideachas ard chaideáin fáil trí bhean na Gaeilge in ar scoilení lán Gaeilge. Tá go leor siúlagan chun na sprochanna sin a bhaint amach. Dail sí mar rin an fallacy don oideachas lán Gaeilge las muid an Gaeltacht agus an plán gníomh don Gaeilge í scoilení man bhéarla. Is féidir lom, is féidir linn. Tógan an dá fallacy seo an obair íontach atá siúl bhíon fallacy don oideachas Gaeltachta. Cumála sin tá obair tosnaithe an sonraíocht nó don Gaeilge san áirteist. Ba deis íontach san obair sin tionchar dearfach a imirt fólam agus úsáid na Gaeilge í measc scoláirí. The UNESCO project, Strategic Workforce Planning for Teachers in Ireland, also aims to support my department in further understanding how we can ensure the sustainability of the teaching profession in primary and post-primary schools. I mentioned earlier that a priority for me is supporting teacher professional development and helping teachers and school leaders to focus on teaching and learning. You will be aware that my department has started an action research project to support school principals by trialling administrative executive roles in schools. With this trial, we hope to test the feasibility of such a role and also to gain valuable data about the administrative tasks that happen in school in order to support schools better. The TUI has made a great contribution to the development of this project. By identifying ways to support and to reduce administrative aspects of school life, our goal is to find a way of enabling an even greater focus by all on teaching and learning. As a teacher, I'm very proud of the part that the teaching profession plays in ensuring that children's voices are heard on education matters. And it's important too that the voice of teachers continue to be heard in a school community context. I'm delighted to announce that I recently obtained government approval for several amendments to the Education Student and Parent Charter Bill. And a key measure that I'm proposing is the inclusion of teachers and other school staff in its provisions. This will underpin the importance of teachers being consulted with and having input into the development of school policies. Most importantly, I believe that the bill can and will improve the level of engagement between all members of our school community, school staff, students, and parents. In the often chaotic world of 2026, it can be so hard for all of us, and especially our young people, to make sense of the world that we live in. Since the outbreak of conflicts in Ukraine, the Gulf, and Palestine, the government has worked closely with our EU and regional partners to advocate for peace and to ensure the safety of our citizens, including the very many working in the Gulf region. We have consistently called for de-escalation and an end to conflict. As Minister, I know how much you care for all of your students, how much you want to see them thrive. I see it in your work in the L1 and L2 programmes, in supporting students at risk of educational disadvantage. I see it in your sharing of the Convention with young people as equal members. I see it in your inclusion of children with additional educational needs. We know from the national conversation how much well-being matters to all of us in schools. This may well be a reflection of the changing and challenging times in which we live. but it also reflects a fundamental truth best expressed by the philosopher Nell Noddings. My contention is, first, that we should want more from our educational efforts than adequate academic achievement, and second, that we will not achieve even that meagre success unless our children believe that they themselves are cared for and learn to care for others. Delegates, thank you for your welcome here today. I really enjoyed engaging and my continued engagement with the TUI, and I want to wish you all the best for your deliberations at Congress here. The work that you do is so important to ensure that teachers who are central to the education of our students have the resources and the supports that they need to deliver for students. And I will continue to work with you and to ensure that the senior cycle redevelopment continues apace and that the junior cycle framework continues to evolve and to support our students. Gura míle maith againn. Thank you.
Gur míle maith agat, Ara.